We spend so much of our younger years convinced that we know everything, only to look back later and realise how little we understood. Welcome to the Lead World channel, where we explore the inner world of leadership, well-being, and what it means to build a business that doesn't break you. My name is Trevor Hill, and I'm a thought leader and a coach who works with leaders, mostly from the hospitality industry, to help them find balance between their lives and their businesses. And in this video, I want to share some of the reflections that I wish I could send back in time, the lessons, the missteps, and the truths I wish I'd known earlier. Maybe they'll resonate with you wherever you are in your path. When I look across the decades, there's a pattern that almost makes me smile. In my 20s, I was absolutely convinced that I knew everything. I carried myself with such certainty that when I turned 20, I even joked that I had the wisdom and the modesty to admit that I knew nothing. Yet I still believe I had all the answers. 10 years later, at 30, I made that same declaration. I look back at my 20s and I laughed at how sure I'd been, how naive and how blind to it I was at the time. But even then, even with all that hindsight, I still carried myself as though I was the center of the universe, as though my perspective was the one that mattered most. It wasn't until I turned 40 that I began to feel the kind of humility that actually changes you. For the first time, I admitted to myself that I truly knew nothing. And it was in that moment that Socrates' words stopped just being a quote to me and became something I lived. The only true wisdom is knowing that you know nothing. When I finally understood that, I realized how much I had missed in the years before. Because when you believe you know everything, you stop listening, you wait for your turn to talk. You're eager to prove yourself right, but you don't absorb what's around you. Once I accepted that I know nothing, I started to learn again. I started to open myself up to lessons that had been there all along. In the words and actions of people I barely noticed because I was too busy preparing my own response. If I could go back, I'd shake that younger version of myself, the one who spent his late teens and 20s doing everything possible to avoid commitment or responsibility. The one who danced between professions, keeping himself in a state of constant flux, chasing a lifestyle built on excess, drinking, drugs, women, festivals, anything that promised escape and exhilaration. I told myself I had been given the talents and the energy to enjoy now, and that one day later I would work hard and catch up. Make the most of it now, I said to myself, and at the time I believed it wholeheartedly. But if I could whisper something into the ear of that young man, I'd tell him this: the energy, the confidence, and the sheer force of will that you're spending on chaos could have been a force of nature if it had been just directed in a certain direction. If you had channeled it into building instead of burning, you would have created a life that allowed you to enjoy ease much later. My wife and I often laugh about this. She worked hard, saved, and built foundations in her younger years while I partied and drifted. Now she has assets and the freedom to relax, while I only just started entering into the hardest working stage of my life. It's funny in hindsight, but it's also a lesson I'd love to have understood far earlier. I often appeared laid back in those years, but beneath the surface, I had a habit of making things far more important than they ever truly were. I could lash onto an idea, one possibility, and refuse to let it go until I had driven myself into a spiral of anxiety. More often than not, the thing never came to fruition, or if it did, it never mattered nearly as much as I thought it did. I wish I'd learned earlier what is actually important. Not the noise, not the fleeting drama, not the thing that feels urgent in the moment. What really matters, what will matter when you look back, is connection, love, company, and meaning. The people you hold close, the times when you feel seen, understood, and at peace. Those are the memories that you will want to hold on to. I still wrestle with this lesson now. I still get in my head, but I know deep down that it's the only thing that lasts. In my 20s, I thought I was invincible. There's a part of me that misses that, the fearlessness, the sense that nothing could touch me. But I also look back and see how I wielded that confidence, and it wasn't always kind. I never thought of myself as being cruel. I prided myself on being honest and upfront, never lying, never stringing anyone along. And yet, if I'm truly honest with myself, I knew what I was doing sometimes, particularly with women. I toyed with emotions, I treated feelings as if they were less fragile than they are. And I thought I was invulnerable, and I acted like others were too. If I could go back, I'd tell that younger man to tread more carefully with hearts, not just his own, but the hearts of others, because what you give to people stays with them. Words and actions land in ways that you can't control, and you may forget, but they may carry it for years. I learned this the hard way when I was older in a relationship that broke me open. I finally felt the devastation that comes when someone plays with your emotions, even unintentionally. And in that pain, I couldn't help but wonder who I had left with similar scars. It's a thought that still makes me wince. That lesson, the lesson of humility, of realizing that you know nothing, changes how you see love as well. When you lose that reckless fearlessness of youth, you start to understand the beauty of finding someone who is your equal. Someone who sees you not only as you are, but as who you are trying to become, who you will be, and who you are even when you can't see it yourself. To love and to be loved in that way strips away ego. It lets you give yourself fully, and it frees you in ways your younger self could never imagine. I remember truly believing that I would never find love, that I would be alone for life. I thought soul partners were for other people and not me, and I wish I could go back and shake that version of myself. I wish I could tell him how wrong he was, how self-absorbed and narrow that view really was, because what I have now, what I have found with my wife, is more profound than anything that I thought possible. I would tell my younger self that love doesn't just exist, it waits for you, and it changes everything when you are finally ready to see it. Another thing I tell him is don't be so careless with money. When I had it, I spent it, and when I didn't have it, I still found ways to spend it. I always thought there would be time later to save, to invest and to build, but later never comes unless you choose it. Time speeds up. The years slip past faster than you think they will, and the changes you plan to make eventually only happen if you begin it today. I'd tell my younger self to start the habit early, put money aside, even a little, invest in ways you don't touch, build a muscle of saving, because whatever mentality you build in those early years will follow you longer than you think. I tell my younger staff this all the time. Start now, even with small amounts, and you'll thank yourself later. The compounding power of time is the most valuable thing you'll ever waste if you ignore it. And yet, as tempting as it is to imagine going back and giving all this wisdom to my younger self, I know that it wouldn't have changed things, because nothing external swoops in to transform you. No one arrives to pull you onto a clear path. No event flips a switch and saves you. The only person who can change you is you. And change doesn't happen in one big grand gesture. It happens in the smallest decisions made daily. I used to believe that one day something would happen to me that would turn me into a person that I imagined becoming, that I would wake up one morning and suddenly be disciplined or wise or patient, but that moment never came because it doesn't exist. The only way you become who you want is by choosing it over and over again in small, quiet ways. And the longer you wait for an outside force, the more time that you lose. Everything compounds. Money, yes, but also energy, health, relationship. If you neglect them, you lose years of growth that you could have had. If you nurture them, they build into something extraordinary. That's something I wish I'd learned sooner. Not because I want to erase the years that I'd spent differently. They shape me, but because I see now how much earlier I could have found peace, meaning and depth if I'd just begun sooner. But I also know this, I like who I am today. Every choice, every mistake, every detour, it led me right here. These reflections aren't about regret or about trying to rewrite history. They're about acknowledging the lessons that came later and recognizing that I might have walked a gentler path if I'd learned some of them sooner. And this exercise, me saying these words out loud, isn't really for my younger self at all. He wouldn't have listened. He couldn't have understood. It's for me now to remind myself of what I know, to reaffirm it and to speak it to the world in the hope that someone out there, maybe someone in their 20s, might hear it and carry it forward sooner than I did. If there's one more thing I'd want to press into my younger self's mind, it's that there is no absolute wrong answers in life. We make choices and every choice has consequences, but the labels of good and bad are relative. Meaning is what we give it. Looking back, I can point to decisions I wish I'd made differently, moments where I could have been kinder, wiser, more deliberate, but every single one of those choices was a stepping stone. Every misstep carried me forward as much as each success did. It's tempting to look back and want to undo mistakes, but in truth, they were the fire that shaped me. They baptized me in a heat I didn't think I could withstand, but that heat tempered me. It sculpted me into who I am now. And if I strip away the wish to change anything, what I'm left with is gratitude. Gratitude that the path, however uneven, brought me to this day, and this day is good. That doesn't mean I dismiss the pain or brush over the harm. Some of those choices hurt me and some hurt others, but they are all part of the trail of stones that carry me across the swamp of becoming. If I could speak to my younger self, I wouldn't tell him to avoid the swamp. I'd tell him to trust that the stones are there, even when he can't see them. And that's the thing about stepping stones. When you're standing on one, all you can see is the challenge of balancing on it. You don't see the path that brought you there, and you can't see the path ahead. You're just not trying to fall. It's only when you stop and look back that you notice the pattern, the way every stone connected, even the ones that seem pointless or painful at the same time. When I look back now, I see that every heartbreak, every failure, every detour was necessary. They prepared me for the moment I was finally able to see the love of my life. My wife and I crossed paths many times before we truly met, at parties and events, but back then I wasn't ready. I wasn't the man who could recognize her soul. I was full of ego, assumptions and expectations about what I deserved and how life should unfold. Even if I'd looked her in the eyes in those years, I don't think I would have even seen her. It took every false start, every relationship, every painful ending to shape me into the man who could one day look at her and know. Not just know she was beautiful, not just know that she was kind, but know in the deepest way possible that she was the one who could complete me. Not by filling a gap, but by amplifying everything I already was and everything I wanted to be. If I could tell my younger self one thing about love, it would be this. You will not miss what is meant for you. You may delay it, you may stumble before you reach it, but it will be there when you're ready to see it. And the trials that break you along the way are not wasted. They are chiseling you into a version of yourself that you'll finally be capable of recognizing it when it comes along. This lesson applies far beyond love. When life feels unbearable, when it feels like there is no way forward, remember that you're still on a stepping stone. It may feel slippery, it may feel like you're about to lose your balance, but it is part of the path. And one day when you look back, you will see how it connected to the next one. The only way through is forward. I sometimes imagine it like this. You walk into a cinema late and you catch the last 10 minutes of a film and you see the characters finding love, peace, resolution, everything works out. And you leave with a sense of closure, of reassurance that all the pain was worth it. And then when the film replays, you watch it from the beginning and suddenly the heartbreak, the conflict, the suffering all land differently because you know the ending is good. You know everything will resolve. The struggles, they sting, but they are bearable because you've seen what they lead to. Life doesn't give us that gift. We don't get to peek at the ending, but we do get to choose how we frame the middle. If we can carry the belief that it will work out, even without seeing the resolution, then the journey shifts. It becomes more peaceful, more tolerable, and sometimes even more beautiful. Because you're not living in fear of collapse, you're living in trust, and the stone you're standing on will lead to the next. Of course, I know all of this now, but even now I forget. I still catastrophize. I still spiral in my head. I still let small things swell into giants, which is why I say again, this isn't really for my younger self. You wouldn't have understood. This is for me, for the me that exists right now, who needs reminding, who needs to hear it spoken out loud. I would tell him, and I still tell myself, that no one is coming to save you. No magical moments going to arrive where everything suddenly makes sense. Transformation is a myth unless you decide to make it real. It's in the tiny, daily, almost invisible decisions that you build the life you want. Do you get up when you said you would? Do you pause before snapping at someone? Do you put £10 away instead of spending it? These moments compound. They seem small, but they create your future. And compounding is the word that echoes the most because it applies to everything. Money compounds, relationships compound, energy compounds, movement compounds. Every action either strengthens or weakens the trajectory that we are on. When I was young, I didn't see that. I thought I had infinite time, infinite energy, infinite chances, but time accelerates and the years compress as you move through them. And suddenly you're looking back wondering where it all went. I want to tell that young man that later is an illusion. If you want to be different later, start now, because otherwise later never arrives. It's always just around the corner, always waiting for you to catch up. And while you're waiting, life is moving on without you. And yet, even as I say this, I want to offer him gentleness too, because yes, he squandered time, he drifted, he made mistakes, but he also lived. He experienced the reckless joy of youth, and those memories are not worthless. They are part of a mosaic of who I am. They gave me stories, scars, and laughter that I wouldn't trade for anything. So So perhaps what I would say to him and to myself is this: forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for not knowing better sooner. Forgive yourself for taking the long way round. Forgive yourself for being human, because all of it, the recklessness, the mistakes, the triumphs, was necessary to bring you here. And here is good. If I zoned out even further, I'd remind him that good and bad are not absolutes. They are perceptions. The things you once thought were disasters may turn out to be blessings in disguise. The things you thought were victories may reveal cracks later. What matters is not the event itself, but how you choose to carry it, the meaning you assign to it. That is where your power lies. And so I circle back to where I began. The wisdom of knowing nothing. Because once you accept that you don't have the answers, you open yourself to growth. You become a student again. And being a student of life, curious, humble, willing, that is where peace is found. I used to believe that strength was about control, about certainty, about dominance. Now I know strength is about softness, about the ability to bend without breaking, to admit when you're wrong, to listen more than you speak. That's what I would tell my younger self, that the strength he thought he had was brittle, and that true strength is far more subtle. And I'll finish with this. When you find love, real love, it will reframe everything. Not just romantic love, but the love of friends, of family, of self. It will show you that all the stepping stones, all the mistakes, all the wandering was worth it, because it led you to the place where you could finally see clearly. So give yourself a break, trust the process, know that you are being sculpted, even in the fire, even when you can't see it. And remember that one day you will look back on the stone you're standing on now and see it as part of the path. You will understand why it had to be there. And until then, hold fast to this. You matter. Your life, with all of its chaos and beauty, is unfolding as it needs you. And even if you can't see the ending, trust that it will be good, because it will. I'd love to hear from you. If you could go back, what's one thing that you would tell your younger self? Share it in the comments below, and if this video gave you something to reflect on, remember to like and subscribe this channel, and I'll try and do more of them in the future. Thanks for watching.